The developments of Middle Eastern politics and state of affairs suggests new analysis, one that rewrites scenarios of foes and allies and places focus on a key player, the state of Israel and its religious quest of the Promised Land. A quest that starts with the occupation of Palestine but does not end there. In Genesis 15:18, Abram was promised a stretch of land that covers the Arab world, not Iran. And so, a group of radical Jews, disguised under modernization and democracy, embark on that quest. Zion was at center stage, from movies to songs, Bonnie M. and the Rivers of Babylon, Oh There We Were, as we remember Zion, to the last surviving, resisting human city, Zion again, in the Matrix, and thus Zionism. The takeover was communicated across board in attempts to deceive global opinions and legitimize the alienation of indigenous people. The building block began with the illegally legal state of Israel and two objectives: survival and growth, and two strategies: building progression and causing regression. To achieve that, 4 eradication principles were put in place. Eradication of Arab nationalism, that was championed by Jamal Abdel Nasser, a visionary free thinker and charismatic leader who declared the United Arab Republic in 1958 and gained the hearts of the entire Arab world with his reforms and pro-Arab stance. To crush Arab nationalism, the creation of dictators and implementation of assassinations would be the strategy. Israel excelled in assassinating free minds and charismatic leaders able to unite and constructively influence the Arab world. Second on the list, eradication of pro-Palestinianism, particularly among Christian Palestinians and Arabs who could effectively rally the largest religion in the world, and particularly in the West, against Israel and its atrocities. To do so, the creation of Islamic extremism was the answer. Suddenly, the call for justice for Palestine was spearheaded by radical Islamic groups. All other voices were almost negligible. Modernization was next, and conflict would ensure its demise. And conflict it was, and conflict it is. Last but not least, eradication of pan-Islamism. A united Muslim world would most definitely pose the biggest threat. Building on Islamic sectarianism and minority rule would be the answer. It worked. So how did this all come about? And what does it look like? Well, the Arab is the target and not Iran. Iran is more so an ally. The current regime, of course. Post-60s set the pace. Abdel Nasser was out of the way in 1970, and dictators were on the rise. So was conflict. King Faisal and all his Arab nationalism, pro-Palestinianism, reforms, and pan-Islamism was assassinated in 1975. And his friend and ally, the Shah, a pioneer in the formation of a modern, self-reliant, and economically strong Iran, was toppled and replaced by Khomeini in 1979, and more dictators. The PLO was silenced and removed from Lebanon in 1982 and was replaced by an Iran-backed resistance that somehow grew stronger under the Israeli occupation of Lebanon, slowly but surely expanding, and more radical groups, and more conflict. In conclusion, Iran seems to be the ally, not the enemy. The Arab, to both Israel and Iran, seems to be the enemy. The Levant, for 75 years, is experiencing systematic mass migrations due to political and economic instability, while the Jewish population, systematically as well, embarks on migration from around the world into Levant, namely Israel, in search of stability and opportunity. As Israel climbs to second place in its economy, right after Saudi Arabia, as tiny as it is, and ranks third worldwide in research, development, and innovation. And the GCC is finally caving in with treaties and relations, thus allowing more opportunity and expansion for Israel and its people. Thinking this way, they can eliminate the Iranian threat, not knowing it's one and the same. Is there a way out? Well, yes, there is.